A very good evening and namaskar. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Seems like sir is pretty much busy. Okay, I can understand. It's been like, whenever we want to meet anyone, we have a lot of talk to discussion. But let me tell you, sir, that today is the evening we are going to talk a lot actually. Okay, so very good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Namaskar, how are you all feeling? Great? Okay, so I think today we all know the reason why we all are here, right? I'm sure everybody can read this. But let me tell you, everyone, today is the evening to celebrate the moment that we people are actually waiting for a very, very long time. So, before I officially start this evening, let me introduce myself. My name is Ekta Tiwari, your host of this evening. And just like a good host show, I would like to say thank you so very much, everyone, for taking your time out and joining us here. आप सभी समय निकाल यहाँ आए आप सभी लोगों का बहुत 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 शुक्रिया Thank you. Okay, so shall we start the evening now? Okay, how about this with a round of applause? We can start. This will be more good, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you so very much for this amazing, amazing applause. But I think now it is my time to call the perfect man on the stage who actually deserves the round of applause. Please help me with a huge round of applause to welcome Mr. Rashid Mukdomi, Senior Director Marketing, to kickstart this evening. Come on, everyone. A big round of applause for him. And he is going to take us to a Lumenis corporate presentation.
Very good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lumenis product launch meeting. My name is Rashid. I'll be presenting our corporate scenario, corporate presentation of Lumenis. Because of we have already started, I think, 30 minutes late, so I'll be quickly running through my presentation. Lumenis vision. We are a global leader in energy-based medical devices, generating growth by focusing on innovative technologies and global footprint. We are an agent of change, enabling adoption of minimally invasive procedures driven by growing aging population. We recently celebrated 50 years of our anniversary, born from the merger of Coherent Medical Group, ESC Medical, and HGM Medical Laser Systems. So we are carrying with us over 50 years of experience in laser technologies, operating in three main business verticals: surgical, aesthetics, and ophthalmic. We are the inventors of multiple industry standard technologies, including the first laser photocoagulator and IPL. We are based out of Israel and offices in 5 continents. Sales in over 100 countries, more than 1,200 employees worldwide, with over 53 systems sold since 2000 year. We have some of the highest active patents in the US and additional 94 worldwide. This is the Lumenis timeline. We started off in 1966. There was a Coherent Medical company at that point of time, and that merged with ESC Medical Systems and HGM Medical, and the new company was named as Lumenis in year 2001. This is the picture of the very first laser system that we developed. It was in 1970. That's the first argon photocoagulator. We are a company with a very strong global footprint. As I said, we are present in over 5 continents, and in India also we are directly present. We are very well positioned across multiple business domains. Within surgical, since most of you are here urologists, BPH happens to be one of the major applications for us in urology, and of course lithotripsy. In ophthalmic, we are present in cataract, retina, glaucoma, and of course cornea application. In aesthetics, we have different lasers for skin treatments, hair removal, as well as body contouring. In surgical applications, most of you are aware of our flagship product, is a 100-watt Holman laser. We have recently inducted, few years back, we inducted Pulse 120H. Earlier on, we used to have a 100-watt technology that's also now developed with new features. That the new technology is called as Pulse 100H. Then we have Pulse 50H and Pulse 30 for stone applications. We are a premium brand in aesthetics with M22 Ultra. We have different products in aesthetics for skin and hair applications and have gold standard products in these applications. We are the pioneers in ophthalmic laser market as well. M22 OPT, it's creating waves worldwide for different dry eye applications. We have a very strong training and service support in India. We have a direct service organization here offering direct service to all our users. Now, about Lumenis India, we have more than 1,000 lasers installed across India, across different specialties. Direct presence in India offering direct sales, marketing and service support. Lumenis technologies are very widely used in top teaching institutions, corporate hospitals, specialized medical and ophthalmic centers as well as standalone clinics. We have created leadership in trainings and education, developed training centers for different applications across India. We have developed preceptorship and proctorship courses for different applications, especially for urology. Initiated patient education drive to create awareness among patients and gold standard treatment in all segments. I'll just play a video for you. This is a Lumenis corporate video.
The power of light is the power of life. Imagine it condensed into a single spark. A spark of ingenuity. Lumenis. 1966. A spark was ignited at the Lumenis laboratories, resulting in the first commercial medical laser in the world. Since then, for nearly 5 decades, Lumenis has been a world leader in lasers and energy-based medical devices. Thanks to investments of over $100 million during the past few years, our research and development department is a shining beacon of light in the industry. Driven to innovate by the energy of more than 1,000 professionals, we have delivered to the medical world over 220 registered patents, numerous FDA clearances, and groundbreaking innovations in the surgical, ophthalmic, and aesthetic fields. In surgery, Lumenis leads the way, offering innovative laser treatment methods with our high-powered holmium and CO2 laser technologies. We pioneer a clinically superior prostate surgery procedure and innovated advanced laser lithotripsy solutions and next-generation ENT treatments. Empowering surgeons with ultimate accuracy and superior clinical outcomes. In ophthalmology, Lumenis revolutionized the way eye surgery is performed, introducing the very first ophthalmic argon photocoagulator. Lumenis is also the force behind the groundbreaking selective laser trabeculoplasty, or SLT, for managing open-angle glaucoma, offering proven clinical efficacy with an impressive 93% success rate. With cost-effective modular platforms, we provide physicians with maximum performance lasers and maximum patient comfort. Lumenis is a premium brand in the aesthetic medicine field, revolutionizing procedures with numerous inventions such as intense pulsed light and CO2 fractional skin resurfacing, and technologies such as light shear for hair removal and Resurfix for non-ablative skin resurfacing. In scar treatment, we dramatically improve patients' quality of life with novel technologies that enable the deepest penetration into the skin, providing better outcome than any other solution. The results can only be defined as medical miracles.
For physicians all around the world, Lumenis is a brand of excellence and ingenuity. As a global leader, we take immense pride in our long, successful track record of bringing to market innovative solutions which are based on superior technology and optimal patient outcomes.
Our commitment to excellence is what sets us apart. High precision, attention to details, advanced materials, and the special care of a personal touch. All these enable us to elevate each product to perfection. As a premium company, we believe that our products are your lifetime partners. Our experts around the globe guarantee unparalleled level of service and support, along with assured peace of mind of minimum downtime. Lumenis established a leading position across the segments we operate in, and boasts an incredible installed base of over 80,000 systems in more than 100 countries, served by 12 centers that enable true global coverage. The world over, we bring energy to healthcare. Lumenis.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you all will have an exciting time. Next few hours are going to be, I would say, path-breaking in urology industry. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so very much, sir. I hope each and everyone who all are sitting here have seen the beautiful, amazing journey of Lumenis. And I must say, starting from 1966 till now, we have to say that we create the changes. Just not the change, we create the revolutionary changes. And that's the reason we all are the global leader. So thank you so very much for making us and calling us the global leader. And this has all happened just because of you all who are sitting here to celebrate this beautiful, amazing evening with us, where we are going to witness the launch of the revolutionary Moses technology, which shall transform the way urinary stones are treated. But before we take this moment, let's take a look to the evolution of lasers. For that, I would like to call Mr. Navkaran Singh Chimney to please come upon the stage. Come on everyone, can we have a huge round of applause for him? Senior Director, Medical Business, Mr. Navkaran Singh Chimney.
Can we have the presentation, please? Very good evening, everyone. I welcome you to yet another technology revolution launch by Lumenis called the Moses. When we were going through the presentation, we debated a lot about what type of topic we're going to talk about. Is it going to be urology evolution or urology revolution? But I feel evolution is the right word. Why? Because it talks about continuous growth of morals and value. And that's what, in my next 3 or 4 slides, I will be talking to you about. So, when we started this business, we talked about always being number one. That was our vision. But they always say that when you have to be number one, it's only the tip that the people see. But what we need to see is all the hard work that goes underneath this pyramid. So if you look at, for the last 9 years, we have established our office in India. We have started from actions, initiatives, core competencies, battlefield, and goal. Now, if you look at actions, we started from account-based, identification, value propositions, new applications which are there to provide more viability to customers, evidence creation so that we have facts and local facts, society and KOL managements, disposables and procedures for the safety of patients, and education-based promotions. Now, when you talk about initiatives, it's easy to talk about new product initiatives, value creations, education and training, and direct sales and service coverage. But what it takes in establishing all of this is, all the hard work that comes in. When we started our office in India around 9 years back, we were never focused only on sales. We wanted to make sure that each and every customer who buys our laser not only has best technology, but also has the best viable solution to return on investment. So for doing that, what we have established is one, direct service model. Today we have our service head here who is coming in from vast experience from Wipro GE. We have around 14 engineers in ground. We have around 3.4 to 5 crore rupees of spares inventory to ensure the lowest downtime in service. We make sure we manage all our services through 1-800 number to ensure the best long time of services. We also have in-house clinical department which ensures that when the machine is installed, there is a proper training, preceptorship and proctorship program that is provided to the doctor so that he can prescribe the technology well in confidence. Thirdly, we also made sure in initiatives we partner with top accounts across countries to ensure we provide them patient and physician education programs. So at the end of the day, all of these initiatives made it in confidence that when we supply an equipment to any of the hospitals, they always have confirmation viability, least downtime, best clinical outcomes, more confidence, and thirdly, talking about your visibility through patient education and physician education. Core competencies we always believed was advanced technology, brand, install base, because I'm proud to share with you today that most of our business that we get is 80% or 70% coming in from references. So we value and we thank you for that. Key opinion leaders, I think most of you present here, we thank you. I think we've been trying to engage as much as possible in the last 8 or 9 years to share our experiences across India. And definitely the best channel management with best distributors who are available to us for especially government business to take it forward. In battlefield, I'll take you quickly. The major battlefield for us in medical would definitely be urology. But if you look at in last 8 years, we have expanded ourselves in ENT, we have expanded ourselves in pulmonology, and recently in 2017, we renamed surgical as medical BU in the first quarter of this year. And we added vision with yet another revolutionary product that is M22 for dry eye. The goal remains focus on 2 and 3 businesses, and that's how you see in the last 8 years we become as number 1 in technology, number 1 in installation, and number 1 in support. Now, understanding all about the iceberg strategy. Now what comes is we also wanted to understand what is it about commercial strategy to upgrade. Now here I take a pride to share with you that usually organizations always talk about the tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 cities. But something different that we did in this was, if you look at the column of profile, we also segmented our accounts with L3, L2, which talks about the number of cases that we are doing. And the reason we added it is, and the reason I can say today to you is, a lot of doctors here, from private accounts, we made them teach how to buy laser because we made them have confidence on viability. So that's another yet change that we brought in Lumenis India in surgical and urology with this segmentation that got added. And always, you have prestigious accounts like Columbia Asia, Apollo, Max, Fortis, Medicity. If I name few from the delegates present here, they have been always our key accounts in top 3, and we made sure that we own these accounts with Lumenis KOLs and establishing them as center of excellence in academic support. Not only this, if you talk about our L3 strategy for T2, we have made sure we educate them for them to go in for buying high power laser with right education and training, and we have always made sure to provide them best service supports pre and post sales so that they have strong confidence and entire install base gear up is established. T3 cities, including South Asia, we are working there with indirect sales, and we are making sure we establish the best service network and equip our distributors so that they can have the best support for the customer locally based out of Nepal, Sri Lanka, even in C category towns we have across in India. So that was another commercial upgrade that came in with our company. Lastly, I would like to share with you is the private institutes that we have worked with. Now these institutes are institutes which are private medical colleges or private accounts, like big private accounts like you have maybe Patel Hospital in Jalandhar, or which are doing good number of surgeries in urology, maybe if they are in B or C category towns. And we have supported them well with proper care up, so pre and post sales, to ensure that we remain comfortable and focused on entire utilization of the technology. Now, what happens is when you're looking at the 2 stages that have come up for us, one, the entire pyramid that the organization established, second, the commercial organization that we had, all the support. The current status that comes for us is that today we are proud to tell you that almost every urologist in India is looking for buying a laser. I think Lumenis India has contributed a lot initially in between for all these initiatives, motivations, commercially, technically, and education-wise to ensure we provide complete viability. But today, if we talk about this current scenario, it talks about the total addressable market that we have, in which we are launching new product, we are repositioning new products, luminous addressable market, which is there where we're trying to still emphasize with a lot of direct sales service, indirect channels and distributor setup, private sales, and followed by coverage, pipeline, and orders, which are there. We are also with new technologies trying to interact with key opinion leaders coming in from competitor technology, because today I think we have a lot of answers for them from the technology we have to resolve few of their concerns, which probably the previous technology had some apprehensions from their side. Now, the reason I shared all of this with you is to actually tell you how internally Lumenis India Surgical and Urology has worked day in, day out to ensure that we grow up with a strong installation. So this would be my last slide. If you look at the Lumenis India Urology presence, I mean, every corner of the country is covered by us. And I would like to tell you, 9 years down the line when we started, in fact, I was the fifth employee in the organization, and Lumenis is 9 years old, and I am almost 8 years old. So I've actually seen, and I've been synonymous with this urology evolution. And I'm really proud to share with you that in the last 8 years, we have grown from around 15 to 18 installations to today around 364 installations. Also, the good positive sense that comes out of this presentation and this slide is that if you see, we have made sure that we have not been opportunistic. We have installations from private accounts, standalone clinics, corporates, government hospitals, and that is what is a strength that builds confidence to us when we sit across the doctor on the table to tell them about what sort of initiatives and presentations and efforts that we put in to get the entire country support and agree to the best technology which is there. That's the 100 watt or the P120, and now the Moses effect or the Moses technology. My bad, we have here to launch. So thank you, thanks a lot. And I wish you all a lovely evening. Thank you. Thanks.
Well, thank you so very much, sir. All right, everyone. Okay, so I think now it is the right time to talk about the purpose for the evening. How about this? Yeah? Yes? All right. So I think without taking any time, let me introduce that thing that today is the moment where we are going to witness the launch of our revolutionary Moses technology. Are you all ready now? Yes? Everyone? I can't hear you all. Come on. Say it louder. Or how about this? Can we have a huge applause for the moment? Let's celebrate all together. Okay, so for that, I'm going to call again Mr. Navkaran Singh Chimney. Sir, you need to come again here. And so you already talked about the evolution, and I think it is our time to take a step forward for the evolution, right? All right. So also I would like to request Mr. Rashid Mogdami to please come up on the stage and join him. Come on everyone, can we have a huge round of applause for him? Also, I would like to request Mr. Edo Krishman to please join them on the stage. Clap, 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 clap. Huge round of applause. Also, I would like to request Mr. Dharmendra Mistry to please join him on the stage. Come on. Clap once again. Yes, this is the moment to celebrate. Come on, let's do it all together. Okay, so as you will already seen that we have the gentleman on the stage with us. Very responsible gentleman, I must say. And I think now it is our time to unveil the brand new product, I must say, the Moses technology that we are continuously talking about. So, shall we start now? Are you ready to reframe the law of physics, everyone? Yes? Come on. So time has come. Can we have a huge, huge round of applause to celebrate this moment all together? And I request all the gentlemen to please check the button and let's do it. Come on. Come on, everyone. A best round of applause. And now we present you all Moses technology by Lumenis. Come on everybody, a big round of applause. So this is our revolutionary Moses technology presenting in front of you on the stage. Yeah, seems like there are a lot of things to know, right? Now we can see that we have seen the Moses technology. Am I right or right? Yes, I'm absolutely right. Okay.
I must congratulate Lumenis for bringing out this Moses technology, which addresses all the issues which are faced by the urologists as of today while doing either the semi-rigid ureteroscopy or flexible ureteroscopy or mini PCNL.
Using this completely new double bubble or bubble in bubble technology, we have been able to deliver laser energy more efficiently to the target stone, causing less retropulsion, causing less damage to the surrounding structures, delivering energy more efficiently to the stone, and also allowing more efficient fragmentation and removal of the stone. One does not have to worry about the stone running away.
Improve flexibility, precision and Moses effect. We can pulverize these stones in situ even if in difficult cases.
It also causes stabilizing of the main stone while the fragments which are formed or the pulverized fragments which are formed, they are dissipated away from the path of the laser energy. That adds to the stabilizing and faster pulverization which is done by this technology.
So I definitely admit that this is a record technology coming here for a stay, and I personally have a great experience with this current technology.
It has a more intensity of the power to break the stone into a small particle, but it also focuses on the stone, and then you can really break the stone without the stone jumping. Mustafa Ilahi, he was my good friend from SIU. We worked together on many occasions, on many social causes. He said about the Moses technology, my experience with the Moses technology shows that it is true breakthrough in home laser lithotripsy, demonstrating enhanced accessibility and a significant reduction in retropulsion. I am keen to continue my clinical work and further explore the potential procedural efficiency of the Moses technology. That was his wish, and I would like to continue that experiment on stone with Moses fibers. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much, everyone, for the round of applause. Alright, so everyone, through this video, you all have seen a lot of experience. I must say, from a lot of delegates we have seen on the screen, and also the highly experienced people who has personally experienced the Moses technology. Let's talk about our Moses technology, and to tell us more about the Moses technology, I would like to call Edo Kretschmer to please come up on the stage. Can we have a huge round of applause for him, everybody? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll work this out. If I can just have my presentation, please, on the screen. Meanwhile, so from what I understand, there is probably some kind of a technical issue with the hospital. We will soon be ready. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Ido Kretschmer. I'm the Global Product Marketing of Lumenis Surgical Business Unit. I came all the way from Israel. I'm very, very excited being here with you for this launch of the Moses technology, which is indeed a very exciting time for us. For the last 3 decades, Lumenis has been at the spearhead of innovation in whole new laser systems. And we've provided urologists with the most powerful, most efficient whole new laser systems. And you know, when you talk about innovation in whole new laser systems, what do we usually consider? More power, more repetition rate. This is the innovation that we have. And 3 years ago, when we launched the Lumenis Pulse 120, we really played on this promise and provided urologists with the most powerful laser system out there. Today, when we launch the Moses technology, it's an innovation in a new sense, because it's truly going to revolutionize the way urologists are treating urinary stones. So I will start with a short video that will give you a brief overview on the advantages of the Moses technology. So, what is the Moses technology? Some people say it's a machine, it's the fiber, it's a feature, it's a mode. It's none of that. The Moses technology is a combination of the Lumenis Pulse 120 with the Moses technology, as well as a tailored range of Moses fibers. Together, they combine the Moses technology, which I will shortly explain to you what are the advantages for the physician. As I said, this is a very unique innovation in the sense that when developing the Moses technology, our R&D teams try to put themselves in the shoes of the urologist and try to understand what is it that makes the lives of urologists tough. What are the challenges that urologists worldwide confront when they treat urinary stones? And I will walk you through the challenges and how the Moses technology solves them. So the first challenge when doing whole new laser lithotripsy is not optimized energy transmission. You can see this is the standard, the regular whole new laser, which creates a big bubble within the liquid environment. So the energy stops at this red bar because this is the nature of the whole new laser. It's being absorbed by water. With the Moses technology, what we've managed to do is to modulate the pulse into 2 parts. First, opening a vapor bubble and delivering the remaining of the energy through the bubble and to the target. And you can see the difference in energy transmission in these 2 pictures. So on top, the regular whole new laser with the big bubble that stops at the red bar, and below you can see the Moses technology delivering the energy much further. But while this is a nice picture, what does it mean to you? So you can see here in this graph on the vertical axis, you have energy transmission compared or measured against the distance from the target. So on the horizontal axis, you have the distance from the target with the energy transmission. And you can see that for every working distance, Moses, in the orange dots, provide significantly more energy to the target compared to the regular volume laser. What does it mean? It means that for each working distance, you can provide up to double the impact on the stone. It makes the procedure much more efficient. You can look at this graph from a different way. It means that you can be further away from the stone, for example, let's say 2 millimeters, and provide as efficient as energy delivery as if you were 1 millimeter from the stone. So you can see the difference. You can look at it from both sides. More impact for each working distance and the ability to work remotely from the stone. So it provides you with much more access to difficult to access stones. So this is the first major advantage of the Moses technology. You can also see that due to this optimized energy transmission, the ablation rate with the Moses technology is much more significant. You can see the penetration that in the lower image and also the difference in ablation volume with the Moses technology compared to the regular volume laser technology. The second challenge that we've realized that urologists face is stone migration and stone retropulsion. This is a natural behavior of a stone that, as you all know, occasionally migrates into the kidney. You know, you give the pulse, the stone gets knocked away. But due to the unique pulse modulation mechanism of the Moses technology, you can see how we shoot at the stone and it stays in its place, which means that you don't need to relocate the fiber against the stone. You can continuously work on the stone and fragment it or dust it. The same goes for retropulsion, which is, you know, a different way of looking at stone migration. So this is regular retropulsion when using a regular volume laser. The stone dances, the stone bounces. The physician needs to relocate the fiber against the stone each and every time the foot is off the pedal, while with the Moses technology, you can see that the stone may be shaking a bit, but it's still in place, and the fiber continuously lays on the stone, making the procedure much faster and much more efficient. In the clinical trial published by the late Professor El-Alali, this EAU in London, he has subjectively measured how he felt when treating live patients, 19 patients. And he could measure when he really felt retropulsion when treating the stone. One pedal was with Moses, one pedal was without. And in 85% of the cases, Professor El-Alali felt no to limited retropulsion, while when using the regular volume laser, he felt retropulsion in 68% of the occasions. The third major breakthrough of the Moses technology, and again, this relates to increasing access, is the flexibility of the Moses fiber. You can see the Moses 200 DFL flexibility compared to a regular 200 diameter fiber. It is much more flexible, allowing you and opening new ways to treat lower pole stones and to reach difficult locations. If you think about that, combining the flexibility of the fiber with the better transmission of the energy, it opens a new horizon of treatments that probably previously could not be treated with flexible ureteroscopy. The fourth advantage of the Moses technology, and again, this relates to the Moses fiber, is the bolting that allows you to insert the fiber through a fully deflected scope. I don't need to tell you how expensive is a flexible scope and how easy it is to damage it if you are inserting the fiber in the cumbersome way that you have without the bolt tip. So the bolt tip solves this issue as well. The team of Professor El-Alali has presented their laboratory research, which they've done on a stone simulator, trying to understand the difference in procedure time when using Moses compared to when using regular technology. So for dusting settings, they found out that the procedure time until they can completely remove or dust the stone is 23% less compared to the regular technology, while in fragmentation settings, this is much more evident. They've seen 35% reduction in procedure time. So let's recap. The MOSES technology provides urologists with optimized energy transmission, less retropulsion, more flexibility, more access to the stones, and you can see greater control, shorter procedures, easier access, and less scope damage. Remember, when we thought about the MOSES technology innovation, we thought about how we can improve the life of urologists, and not only in terms of more power, more repetition rate, but the real pain points of lithotripsy today. Just to give you a snapshot, this is just the beginning. We have launched the technology in London this March, and now we're launching it here in India, and we really understand that there is a whole new set of capabilities that we still need to research and develop. So MOSES has been presented in 9 conferences and trade shows. It's being evaluated in over 10 evaluation sites. Over 200 patients were already treated with the MOSES technology. We've published clinical papers, clinical abstracts, and in the next year we will also publish a multi-center clinical paper. So there is more to come, and we really believe that this technology is going to revolutionize the way you treat urinary stones with volume lasers. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we are taking this evening forward by taking you all to the live transmission, where we are going to see the MOSES in action, and to see the live transmission for mini PCNL and RIRS using MOSES by Dr. Mahesh R. Desai from MPUH Nadia, and also I would like to request Dr. Khurshid Ghani to please moderate the live surgery. So can we have a huge round of applause for Dr. Khurshid Ghani? And I request him to please come up and moderate the live surgery.
Electric catheter with 3-4 holes, and I'm irrigating from that. So a small gravel which will wash out through the telescope.
Hello, Dr. Desai.
Now this stone is not very well seen on the fluoroscopy, but it was very well seen on the ultrasound, so I could puncture. And then now you can see that stone. Now you can see that the stone is disintegrated into powder.
Oh, okay, great. Can I talk about the case now, or let's just wait? I think the case might be over, but second case. So this is the case. Okay, so we're going to be seeing the history of this is a 35-year-old female diagnosed with bilateral renal stones. Cystoscopy with left ureteroscopy was performed in July, with a bilateral stent placed at Kenya. I presume that's Kenya, the country, not Kenya hospital, right? Okay.
Non-contact बताइए ना.
Hello, Dr. Desai. Hello, Dr. Desai.
This is the patient who has come from Kenya and has got a stone on the on the right side was a large step-on calculus, which we have done with the laser on this same laser and clear. Now this side she has 3 stone came out fluid please. Now this is a stone, and we are doing the non-contact. So the करूँ ना अभी फ्लूइड ज़्यादा लेसिक साबित दे जाए
So I think I heard him say, give LASIKs. Yeah. That's something that we do.
This is a non-contact.
Dr. Desai, if you can hear us, it would be nice to know what settings you're using.
Under there. Stand by. Okay. Ready? No. The energy is 0.8 and frequency is 20. Now I'm going to increase the frequency to 30. Ready? देखा picture in picture clear. It'll become powder. Let's see here.
Looks like this is a 1300 Hounsfield unit stone. That's what it says on the CT scan.
Okay, so you are keeping the fiber away from the stone. It's a non-contact mode lithotripsy, right? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so let's see the difference. Okay. So till now he was using the non-contact mode, and now he is going to change the mode to the contact mode. Let's see the difference, what it makes between non-contact mode and the contact mode. Yeah, Mahesh bhai, you are on. Okay, so the stone location right now is where you are working right now. Which calyx you are working in the upper calyx with a rigid scope or a flexible scope? Okay, digital one, right. And what is the energy setting, Mahesh bhai? .3 frequency. Okay, 70 frequency in 0.3 joule, right? Got it. So now we are using contact mode, right? By the way, how much time did you? Yeah. Right, it jumps here and there. Right. But do you find this faster as compared to the regular laser fiber? Am I right? Okay. Right. Yes, sir. We have got the PIP view on the fluoroscopy. We see that. Right. Right. Okay. How much time did it take, sir? Okay. How big was it? What was the size of the stone, sir, initially? Right. Right. Okay, so practically all were around 1 centimeter each. Right. And what is the lasing time till now? Because we are all practically done with all these stones, right? Mahesh bhai?
One advantage is this machine itself calculates.
Right.
So we can just take a bit of
How much energy you have consumed, right? energy has been consumed. Now, what time you have taken to finish with the? Okay. How many cases, Mahesh bhai, you have done till now with this Moses technology? Seventh case. Okay. Yeah. 20 minutes. Okay, so there was not much of chasing around. Right. So one question which from the house we would like to put you on was, are you using the ball tip laser fiber or the regular laser fiber? And what is your experience of this ball tip laser fiber as compared to the? Yeah. Right. Okay. So the surface area is bigger, so the energy transmission is better, right? Right. Right.
So in both the cases, these natural small stones, because probably time was a factor.
Right.
But I give one second customer.
Right.
And see, you can see the powder, no?
Right. So it's right.
Are you able to see the picture?
Sir, we initially had seen it for last 1 minute. We have the link cut off, so we are no more been able to see it now. But we have seen how polarization happened with your laser lithotripsy.
Because is very clear.
Right.
And stone is really powder.
One question is, compared to the regular technology, do you find significant difference or advantage in retroposition of the fragments?
Probably yes, because there are 7 cases not enough.
Right.
To compare, we should do a comparative study.
Very
But
correct.
I think for other markers.
Right.
But mostly when you are doing it in the galaxies, it can't go anywhere.
Right.
But we I think what we get the prospective studies.
Yeah, we need a little longer experience, but the shorter experience is at least encouraging, right? Yeah.
So I think it does look that our difference with the second testers.
Right.
The stone, I know remaining inside the stone, and then the stone fragmented into a dust. And then I broke the shell and took out the pieces. So I spent, that was from a viewpoint.
Right.
So the good idea.
Right. So we are right now seeing the Siam view or the IIT view.
Okay.
Can you ask someone to get us the? Yeah, we can't say anything. So can we get into the endoscopy view if you are still in? Mahesh bhai?
So we are almost finishing.
Okay.
Oh, any other question? I think it has lots of potential in here. Because in India, which is much more cost effective than the dual microscope. So it is for large stone. Small fiber delivering a very high energy, and people would be the most successful. Electrical problem is that we have about 5 electrical microscopes, 4 of them are on the tail. Each repair costs 3-4 lakhs rupees. So that is a problem with the electrical. So I think I would try to invest more in the laser fiber rather than electrical microscope.
Dr.
That is my impression at the moment.
Dr. Desai,
But I feel actually happy she can see the powder,
Dr. Desai, this is Khurshid speaking. Khurshid.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? You are so good that we missed everything, and now all we see is the dust. That's what a master you are. So, as you know, we've been having the technical issues here. I have to agree with you that, we also transitioned to the ball-tip fiber, and we found that that started to reduce our repair costs with the flexible scope. Did you catch that?
Hello?
Do you, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you use a ball-tip fiber routinely?
I use what?
Ball-tip.
Yes, I use a 200 small one because I do lots of mini-perk and mostly mini-perk accents or micro-work, and I use a small fiber. And of course for the uteroscope also I use a small fiber. Occasionally when I'm doing a second calculus to a mini-perk, then I use a 300 micron fibers. But now we can see that with the 200 also, the mobility of the uteroscope is quite good.
And so it looks like you're clearing up here. Looks like you've got a lot of good dust particles. Tell me about this case. We didn't know. Did you put an access sheath? Do you have an access sheath?
Oh yes.
Okay. And that's, I assume for a stone burden like this, that's routine for you, right? Oh. Yeah.
And I think I have finished almost everything.
Yeah. Looks. We can see that.
Yeah. I'm just going to show you a keyboard and flexible uteroscopy. And I propose we do a not very large stone, a small stone, just to show that it can be cleared up completely and you can pull it and then can send the patient home on the same day. And then we may not require, I feel that if you have a good dusting, then probably
So I think he was trying to tell us that he sends the patient home after he's done a dusting, which is the sort of routine for us in the US. We never admit patients in the hospital after urethrostomy. Urethrostomy is an ambulatory procedure in the United States. I get the impression that here many patients will say one night in hospital. Yeah, and it looks like he's trying to say that maybe he sends them home on the same day.
Usually they send it after 2 days in a regular uteroscopy procedure. In this case, probably it is getting tested and they're sending it the next day. Also, the concern in India is that for any insurance they require a 24 hours admission. That's also one of the requirements. Although we have tried about a few of the patients admitted who are early morning, we have done the procedure by within 10 o'clock. We send them by 6 o'clock. But then, with the insurance patients, the insurance itself requires 24 hours of admission. Where we are forced to make the patient stay for 1 day, unlike in the US.
He's back. Great. Hang on. Hello, Dr. Desai?
Yeah.
We lost you for a little bit.
Yeah. Now I can hear you.
So looks like you're coming out, right?
Yeah, I just finished and all the stones are now dusted and I put a DA in this patient because the patient has to travel a long distance. Otherwise I would have kept uterine catheter and this would have been alright.
Very nice.
But I was on the other side, it was a stegon, and I was really impressed with that stegon because I could go into the stone and go into a dust, and then the whole thing, it was about 3.5 centimeter stone, and I could finish in around 25 minutes, the waiting time. So that was a so I think what we we require is now, we have these fibers. We should do some study and compare and see what I would look at the quality of fragmentation, amount of residual stone, and amount of sitting. So if you produce the sitting for a large stone, and if there is a less residual stone, I think it will be worth it. This technology would help us to treat the patient much better. So I think this is one step forward, and with this, what is most important is that so far we have to touch the stone to break it. Here we can be little away, maybe about 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters away, and still you can touch it or break it. So that's a good one. Otherwise, sometimes when you penetrate, you can break the stone into a two part. Here, what you want is a test stone rather than breaking into a large part. Unless you are serious, BTNL and you have stones which you can pick it up and take it out. And that's the difference. So you can plan it out. So you can do either testing or you can do either breaking and then on the stone.
I agree with you. I think we found that our experience is that it has got much faster breaking up the big stones with the Moses technology.
I think I will do the video and then put up the video. I think that will be what we need to have a bit more experience, and then we would get, and then plus once we have experience when we have mastered the settings, then we should have a comparative study. I think most important is prospective randomized study where we compare with different fibers, different technology, as well as you can do with a contact and a non-contact more. Then it will be tell us how it is working. But I think definitely one more technology technical thing is ahead.
Okay, so we can't see you anymore, but I think everybody here wants to thank you for the brave Yeah, I mean we were imagining in our minds all the bits that we couldn't see. We knew what we were doing, and we have to thank you for the doing this with the difficulties of the transmission. I'm going to pass it on to your friend who was speaking to you before.
Could you hear that? Amitabh Bachchan of Virology, salute. Sir, one closing remark. शुरुआत में तो मैं कि गुजराती में गर्लफ्रेंड की बात करता था. I tell you that was very well. Thank you so much, Mahesh bhai. Great. Okay.
I think he truly deserves a huge applause. Can we have a huge applause for him once again? I hope so. Well, everybody, so I would like to say special thanks to Dr. Khurshid. Thank you so very much for making us entertaining. He's already here. So here we have on the stage Dr. Khurshid Ghani, Associate Professor of Virology at the University of Michigan, and we request him to share his valuable clinical experience with Moses. Can we have a huge applause for him? Yeah, pretty good.
Well, I came all the way here to India to watch Dr. Desai operate, so that was a bit of a feat. Many of you know Dr. Desai, so I know he needs no introduction to you all, but for someone like myself in the US, he is a very renowned stone surgeon, so it's always great to see him work. First of all, I want to thank the team at Lumenis for inviting me to come here to India, and I also want to thank some of the urologists that I've met today, Professor Gupta, Dr. Vasni, Dr. Manohar, and my friend Dr. Zishan, and then Dr. Siddiqui, who I met. So it's great to meet some of the Indian urologists and get to know everyone. I'm going to speak to you about my experience of using the Moses technology and the dusting technique. And please, if you have any questions while I'm speaking, just make it interactive. I'm happy to pause and stop. These are my relevant disclosures. So, people think, where am I from? Well, I actually was born in Kerala, and I grew up in England, and I was in London, and I worked at Guy's Hospital in London. That's where I trained, most of my training in stones. And then I moved to the United States to do a fellowship, and I now live in the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, which is indicated there with that football stadium, or American football stadium, largest American football stadium in the United States. And so here I am. It's a great honor to be in India, the country of my birth. So I know the practice patterns are different here in India, but in the US, ureteroscopy is now the dominant method for treating upper urinary tract stones. This is a study that came out of Ontario, and you can see that from 1991 to 2010, a dramatic shift in a reduction in shockwave lithotripsy with the rise of ureteroscopy. PCNL has remained flat. And it's the miniaturization, it's the flexible ureteroscope, it's the laser that's really allowed us to push this forward. In the United States, we do so much ureteroscopy, it's unbelievable. If you speak to one of my second-year residents, when they finish their second year, they've done around 250 URSs. You know how many TURPs they've done? 20. So it's become our main operation. And with the technology and the advances, there's been a great interest in dusting technique. This was this year's AUA in Boston, and there was a debate that I was fortunate to be involved with on dusting versus retrieval. And Olivia Traxler and myself provided the pro-dusting arguments, and it's a very controversial and hot topic. And I know that many of the Indian surgeons are practicing a dusting technique, which I was really glad to see. And I'm going to go a little bit about my dusting technique and what do we really mean by dusting? What are my intraoperative tips and tricks? And then what have I experienced when using the Moses technology with dusting? We have a lab at the University of Michigan, and we've been studying dusting and settings and parameters, and I'm going to touch upon a little bit about some of our findings. And then, of course, there's no point talking about this without actually looking at some of the clinical data and finding out what the literature tells us. This is the definition of dusting. Dusting is high frequency and low pulse energy to break stones into powder. That's the current definition. I have to tell you that that is subject to change. It's subject to change because the technology is changing. The key thing is that we're trying to get powder. And by powder, we mean less than 1 millimeter fragment, but really true powder. What is powder? I mean, this was the slide that Olivia was trying to explain. You have dust, you have fragments, and you have stone. And we're trying to get dust. The reality is, most of the time, we're getting little fragments. But dusting, the advantages is that it relies on spontaneous passage, and one doesn't have to do basket retrieval. So these are high-speed images from our laboratory that show, you can see that this small pulse energy, the 0.2 joules, compared to that 1 joule, 2 joule, the big packing the punch. But it's that 0.2 joule when it's combined with rapid hertz. If you see here on the video on the right-hand side, you can see that at 80 hertz, you can see more and more of the white powder coming off these stones. So it's this high hertz that have really allowed a new frontier in dusting technique. The other thing is the advance with the pulse width, short and long pulse width. Look at the waveform of the long pulse on the right-hand side. It's a narrower waveform. As a result, there's less retropulsion when you use long pulse, and also it's softer on the fiber tip, which is a really important thing when you're trying to protect your fiber and make the case last with the single fiber that you're doing. And I think for you folks here, where you're using a lot of reusable fibers, that's an important criteria. When I trained at Guy's Hospital, the mnemonic for dusting was 6 and 6 and 8 and 8. Those were the settings, 0.6 joules and 6 hertz, 0.8 joules and 8 hertz. This is our mnemonic where I work and with how I train my residents with 120 watt. 0.3 and 70 for dusting is my sort of standard go-to setting, and then I popcorn at 0.5 and 80. And then they have to learn about long and short pulse. And I'm going to touch upon about that later. It's pretty common. When we surveyed members of the Endourology Society a couple of years back, 67% of endourologists worldwide said, yes, they use dusting, and they use high frequency and low pulse energy. But why has it become popular? It's been popular for us in the States because it's been this argument between sheath and no sheath, and if you don't use a sheath, you don't have to place a stent. So a lot of my practice for the stones that are 1 centimeter and under are surrounded by stentless ureteroscopy. Dr. Zishan was with me in Michigan not too long ago, and you saw my cases. I would routinely dust. We don't leave a stent. And that's been a big driver of our practice because stents lead to pain or have quality of life issues. But if you look at our series, around 20 to 30% of our patients don't get stented. Using sheaths are good, but you have to be judicious. Everyone's familiar with this famous picture from Olivier's group with injuries rates which are as high as 14%. I don't think they're that as high in clinical practice, but using a sheath has risk. But more importantly, you can't put a sheath in everybody. You know, you can't force a sheath in everyone. If you want to force it, that's what the picture you're going to see. So I think dusting is very important a technique to learn, especially if you cannot use an access sheath. So when we approach dusting, we always assess the CT scan. I mean, Mahesh's case was there, 1300 Hounsfield unit stone, and that tells us its hardness. So if we have a hard stone, those are the cases that I'll put an access sheath from the very beginning in case the dusting is not working, it's not breaking the stone down very nicely, and I'm going to do a retrieval technique. And then we focus on really setting things up. We push that stone into an upper pole or an interpolar calyx. We use Trendelenburg position routinely for that. We then choose our settings, and we start with a phase of contact laser lithotripsy, and then we move into this non-contact phase, which is popcorning. The philosophy is less is more. I've stolen that from Dr. Nakata, who was a visiting professor on an institution a couple of months back. And I really think that's a great line. The less you do, the better the patient feels. So we set things up. We routinely will move that stone from a pelvic location into an upper polar location if we can. And then we'll choose often our go-to fiber size is a 200 fiber for many reasons. You can see through the dust. It's versatile. It allows you to go to the lower pole. And the fragments that you get off from a 200 fiber are very, very small. And that's a crucial factor. Why do you use low pulse settings? Dr. Desai was using 0.8 joules, but I sort of gravitate towards these settings of 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, maybe 0.5 at the most, because the higher the joule, the bigger the chip that comes off. And the key thing is to keep the pulse down so the chips that are coming off are very small, but then increase the hertz, and then that allows you to do the case in a timely manner. We routinely use long pulse mode. With the dusting approach, you don't see so much retropulsion issues in those high hertz settings for big stones, but the reason we use long pulse is it saves the fiber tip, as you can see in this picture from Dr. Traxler's group. And then it's a combination of the energy settings that gives you that sweet spot that we want to achieve. With the 120 watt system, these are our settings that we use. Our go-to setting in the renal is around 0.3 and 70, and then we popcorn at 0.5 and 80 on a short pulse because we want retropulsion, we want movement. This is Dr. Marcin, who's in Sweden, and he came to our dust symposium in Chicago not too long ago, and he started using these settings, and then he tweeted this out. My Twitter name, by the way, is PP Doctor. Don't hold that against me, but that's my Twitter name. And so he said, fantastic settings, RIRS, mini perk, rest in peace. And to be honest, I do less perks now than I did a couple of years ago. 1.5, 2 centimeter stone. I rarely do PCL. I always prefer to dust if possible. I find it gets great results and there's less morbidity for the patient. Unless the stone is in the lower pole. That's a different scenario. And then we end with this popcorning technique where we do intermittent bursts, and our setting is 0.5 joules at 80 hertz. This has been called many names. It's been called washing machine, jacuzzi. Dr. Rassweiler in Germany calls it jacuzzi. Really, I call it intracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to pulverize those stones inside the kidney in the kidneys. And this slide goes through our algorithm, because what I'm trying to show you on this slide is it's a very dynamic process. I think Dr. Manohar was, when we were speaking about this earlier today, agreed completely. You start at a particular setting, so let's say I start at 0.3 and 70, and it's working, great. I'm getting little chips coming off, I'll stay at that setting. But if I'm not getting little chips coming off, it's a high density stone, I have to increase my pulse energy to 0.4, 0.5. But if it's a low density stone and I'm getting an excessive retropulsion, I may decrease my frequency. But you want to then get to that state of dusting, but then it changes. You may have to decrease the frequency as the stone gets debulked, especially when you see the increase in retropulsion. But the key here is if the stone is resistant to dusting, we stop and we retrieve. But I think with the Moses, one of the things that we're noticing is that we're able to tackle harder and harder stones with the Moses technology. And a lot of us in the States are now around this concept of stent omission. It's become very topical. When can you avoid a stent? So when I counsel my patients, I put them on alpha blockers for 14 days before the surgery. I don't use an access sheath. Stone size is usually less than 1 centimeter in the kidney. And then we go in, we keep it very simple, we dust the stone, and if we can get great disintegration, and we're seeing sand, powder in the kidney, in the ureter, and in the bladder at the end. You've done cases and you come out and you see sand in the bladder, that's a good sign, and that's often a sign for me that this is a kidney that drains, and I won't need a stent. These are the advantage of using a dusting technique. Many of you know this, but the key things for us is it's quicker, it's easier to do, and again, it avoids the routine use of stent. When we adopted the 120 watt laser, when we compared our prospective renal stones that we used with the 60, 80, and 100 watt, and then when we moved to the 120, P120, our stone-free rates significantly improved, and we were doing less staged procedures. So the higher power has really improved our ability and efficiency in the operating room. And these are, just to summarize, just the 5 technical take-home messages for us. 0.3 and 70, that's what we started. If we have 120 watt, we use a 200 fiber, we use long pulse all the time until we get to popcorning, and then we switch to short pulse, and we use 0.5 and 80. So let me take you through some videos of the Moses technology. You heard from Ido about this pulse modulation that the Moses can do. And the data that Dr. Andonian's group and Al-Halali group had shown is that there was better ablation. And I have to say, that's what I've noticed. So let's start with some videos, because I know you're all thinking, okay, come on, get to the video and the case, so let's begin. So this is a 13 and an 11 millimeter renal stone, Hounsfield unit about 1100. And the first thing that I always do is I'm pushing the stone into an upper pole location. I'm using the Moses here, and I start contact laser lithotripsy. I'm using 0.4 joules and 70 hertz, and I do a dancing, chipping technique. I'm very conscious. I never let the stone break up in my eyes. I try and debulk it. But eventually it will break into fragments, and then I will just popcorn. Intermittent laser bursts, 0.5 joules and 80 hertz. Stop and start, stop and start, stop and start. And I just keep at it until I get powder. And this is a great sign, what is known as that snow globe term. You can see just all the dust just moving around, and then that's a feeling to me that I'm going to get a great result. This is the CT in this patient, completely stone-free. So I did a single case, access sheath, that took around 25 minutes, post-op, stone-free. And that was with the Moses. And that was one of my, I think that was my second case that I did, and I was very impressed. The next case I want to show you is a 12 millimeter stone that's much harder, 1500 Hounsfield unit. We're using the Moses distance mode. So you can see here, I don't have to touch the stone. And one of the things I like about it is it really allows you to melt the stone. Can you see how the stone is just melting away and you're getting the powder effect? And this is dusting. This is dusting. There's no chips coming off. The stone is melting in front of your eyes. It's a hard stone. But then the inner core just wouldn't popcorn. It wouldn't break up into powder. It would not, no matter what we tried. So that's one thing you have to be very conscious about. Popcorning doesn't work in every calyx. If the calyx is dilated, it's not going to work. And so it just didn't work for us in that calyx. And so what we had to do is we retrieved. And so this is what we call the hybrid technique. We start with dusting. If it doesn't work, we retrieve. And we spent some time retrieving. And the irony is there's a residual fragment, 4 millimeter residual fragment in this case. The next case I want to demonstrate to you is the straightforward 7 millimeter urethral stone. We were using a dusting setting, and I felt, that there was just too much dust coming off. I was not getting great vision, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to just fragment this stone and just basket it. So I went to a regular fragmentation mode and significant retropulsion. This is why we use long pulse. I switched to the Moses mode, and you can see here that the retropulsion is really minimized. The stone keeps still. And so we were just working on it, breaking it up, keeping still. And I think, while, for us it's not a big deal if the stone retropulses into the kidney, we can just attack it with a flexible scope. I think for many of you, some of you that may have limited flexible scopes, or it may not suddenly be available, I think handling retropulsion is probably quite important. And so I think this is one of the advantages that the Moses technology gives. You can see here, it's hardly moving whatsoever. And this is a straightforward case of fragmentation and retrieval. So I think there's a great advantage of using the Moses for straightforward fragmentation because the retropulsion is minimized. The other area that I see, just like you saw that case earlier on, is the big stone. So a partial staghorn here that we're using Moses, and you can really ramp up the power. So we were using 0.5 joules and 80 hertz on a Moses contact mode, and it is a lot of dust. There's an access sheath, and we kept going. And then there was this part of the stone in an upper pole location that was sort of tucked and buried away. You can see that the majority of the stone is sort of round that corner. So I kept trying working on it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to come back anyway, because this was always a staged procedure. I do staged in staghorn stones. You can see at the end, good amounts of dust. I'm pretty happy with how things broke down. We came back 2 weeks later. I always wait 2 weeks before the next procedure. This is the kidney. There's a little bit of fragments in one of the interpolar calyx, but this is where a real advantage of the Moses distance mode. I was having a really hard time getting right on the stone because of its location, so I was using the distance mode. I didn't have to have contact with the stone, and I was able to deal with that without bleeding, without issues, and I was able to get those fragments out. When I deal with staghorns and there's a staged procedure, I'll usually do some retrieval. And again, in this case, post-op CT, there's a 3 millimeter residual fragment. So I get CT scans routinely for all my complex stones because I need to know what the stone free rate is. We talked about the Baltic fiber. The Moses has a Baltic fiber. We've transitioned to Baltic even before Moses came along. I was using Baltic fibers because we found, as I was making in the commentary, our breakage rates were much lower once we transitioned to the Baltic because it's much smoother on the working channel. So these are some takeaways about the Moses technology. Contact mode facilitates increased energy ablation. So I think we'll be able to do much larger stones more efficiently, quickly, especially these big renal stones that we've been dusting. For fragmentation, yes, we found that the contact mode of MOSES reduces the retropulsion and is helpful when treating urethral stones. For the distance mode, in the occasional odd, weird case when you just can't get the laser fiber onto the stone, you can use the distance. We have found it helpful in that case that you just saw, and also for some one or two difficult lower pole cases. And then, you know, I think one has to be careful about using the distance mode in the ureter. So just watch out there. I think there may be some advantages in the impacted urethral stone, where again, you just can't get right onto the stone, but you can fire just off it, and as long as you're being safe and not hitting the urethral wall. But be aware that the energy is transmitted further than you're used to, than what we're all used to when we use the holmium laser. So just watch out with distance mode, and I think the more we start to use this, we'll start to understand some safety parameters. So we have a laboratory at the University of Michigan that my colleague and partner Will Roberts runs, and so we've been doing some work with Boston Scientific and Lumenis for the last year on studying all these different parameters. And so popcorning, what is the best setting? Many people, if you go to the EAU meetings, they'll say 1 in 20, long pulse, short pulse, whatever. We tested these in a calyceal model that you saw, and we found significant differences in the percentage of fragments that were less than 1 millimeter when we popcorn at 0.5 joules and 80 hertz. Real differences. What about short pulse and long pulse? Short pulse is better than long pulse. Short pulse leads to more retropulsion. The problem is, in the higher pulse energies, like 1 joules, you will obliterate your fiber quickly. So if you're going to popcorn at 1 in 20, then use long pulse. But when you're doing it 0.5 and 80, the fiber tip is very much safe. These are, again, high-speed videos from our lab, and this, on the left, you can see is 1 joules and 20 hertz, and on the right, it's 0.580. You can see halfway through the experiment, when we started this experiment, the stone sizes were all the same, but you can see that already on the right, we were able to disintegrate that stone much, much more quickly. And I told you earlier on about the size of the calyx. That really matters. And we know that, but look, just look at this. Calyceal size, 11 millimeter, you can see the effects. There's dust, stones are being collided. Look at the right. Larger calyx, hardly any movement, same setting, same flow rate, everything, parameters are kept the same. And so it's really important about the calyx that you choose for a popcorning. And I really believe that an optimal popcorning technique, if you can do it, is what will drive optimal results for stone-free rates. And again, this is the data from our lab that show the differences in fragmentation. As you get the calyceal size bigger, fragmentation rates deteriorate. And then what about the impact of frequency? So in this graph, when we look at increasing pulse frequency, when we fixed the energy at 0.5 joules and we went from 40 to 50 to 60, 70, 80 hertz, our percentage of fragments less than 1 millimeter dramatically increased. So higher hertz does matter. And so we've seen that, and we are now, we're a high hertz unit. We use routinely high hertz settings, and we found that we're much, much faster. Now, some of you will say 0.5 and 80 is a lot of energy to put in a kidney, 40 watts. What is the heat effect? What is the danger for this? And I think that's a valid question to ask. So we looked at it, and we started to look at heat generation at these 20 watt and 40 watt settings. This just got published in the Journal of Endourology. And the key thing to understand is that if you've got irrigation and you fire a laser continuously at 40 watt setting for 5 seconds, you go up to 42 degrees Celsius. If you fired for 10 seconds, you go up to 45 degrees Celsius. So limit the continuous laser fire when you do popcorning at these high hertz, high energy settings. Don't go more than 10 seconds. I don't know who here popcorns for more than 10 seconds. Does anyone just press the button and just spend 1 minute without stopping and pausing? Does anyone do that? No. So the reality is, We don't do it, but I think the important thing is to have irrigation to get the temperatures down. So what are the outcomes between dusting and retrieval? So I was involved in the AUA debate, and it all revolved around stone-free rate, right? You know, at the end of the day, stone-free rate. So there's no point doing a technique that if you're going to leave your patients not stone-free. So when we assessed this a couple of years ago in a review paper that we submitted to Nature Reviews, when we looked at all the CT studies that did either retrieval or spontaneous passage, the stone-free rates are not great anyway. At the most, they're 55%. But the criticism that I faced when I put this paper is all those studies were very old. They were 10 years old. Things have changed. Access sheets have improved. Baskets have improved. The stone-free rates are much better. Well, I'll come back to that. We're doing a systematic review right now, and we're looking at all the studies that have been published looking at spontaneous passage. And this is just a summary of some of the studies. What we've found is that the stone-free rate for spontaneous passage, and that's a surrogate for dusting, varies from 50 to 95% depending on the studies. But the stone-free rates, the definitions vary. Everybody keeps a different definition for stone-free. But if you look at the two studies that report the zero fragment rate, the average rate is 75%. If you look at retrieval, okay, these are all the studies in our systematic review that did retrieval for kidney stones. Stone-free rate, again, varies from 51 to 94%. If you look at the 4 studies that report the zero fragment rate, average stone-free rate is 79%. All right. What is the recent comparative data on this show? So in the last 2 years at the AUA, there have been 5 studies that compared dusting to retrieval. There's the EDGE study from the USA. There's a study from Egypt, one from Turkey, one from Korea, and one from Dr. Desai's group, which is a randomized controlled trial. If you look at these 5 studies, operating room time, dusting was lower in 3 out of those 5. Access sheet use, lower when you do dusting. I've told you that, and that's one of the advantages. Okay. What about stone-free rate? 3 studies found no difference. 1 study found retrieval was better. One other study, Dr. Desai's study, found that for large stones, dusting was much better. But let me emphasize, just because you retrieve does not mean you are stone-free. This is dramatic work that was presented at this year's AUA from Dr. Pearl's group. This is a prospective contemporary series of renal and proximal and mid-urethral stones, followed up prospectively. Everyone got a CT at 8 weeks. Look at some of the data. The number of times, the largest they recorded, and I know the fellow who did this with Dr. Pearl, he used to be our chief resident, and they recorded number of times they went up, and the largest number of times they went up was 164 passages. That's a lot of operating room time. But look at the stone-free rate, 55%. This is Dr. Pearl, who's a fastidious retriever, okay? And so if you did a CT, the truth comes out, and that's the thing. Now, do we do CT in everybody? No, it's irresponsible that there's a radiation exposure risk. But what I don't think the stone-free rates with a good dusting technique or retrieval differ. I personally think there's no difference in stone-free. I think things are about other aspects. And I do think that with the Moses, we'll be able to get better and better dusting. And this is Dr. Nakada, who's, you're very familiar with him, the chairman of the, previous World Congress. And he'd come to Michigan as a visiting professor a couple of months back, and he made a very controversial topic point. He said, you know what? Maybe stone-free is not the end point that we should be searching for. Maybe it's other surrogates like quality of life, pain, complications. And I do think that's where a really good dusting technique may have some advantages. I'll be happy to hear what you all think, because I know, looking at many of you, you're all practicing this on a daily basis, and dusting is very popular here in India. And I do think we've got much more to learn with the new technology, like Dr. Desai said, learning, doing trials, studying it to see where are the benefits. We are not done and dusted. So I have to thank Dr. Zishan. He texted this to me a couple of weeks back and said, they love cricket here. This would be good for your talk. And I had no idea who Dhoni is. And I couldn't understand it. Not Dhoni, and what is all this about? And then then it happens that the cricket is the theme here. So I thought this would be very appropriate. Thank you, Zishan. So, take-home messages. Dusting is high-frequency, low-pulse energy settings to break stones into sub-millimeter fragments. That's the current definition, but that definition, my friends, is subject to change. We have found that 120-watt systems open the door for ultra-high frequencies, changing of the pulse width to vastly improve how we tackle stones with retrograde intrarenal surgery. In our hands, dusting in the select patients can avoid use of access sheath and therefore can reduce stent morbidity by not placing a stent. And we found that we've got much, much faster when adopting the 120-watt system and with the dusting technique. We've definitely seen a propensity to do larger and larger stones in the kidney with dusting versus doing a PCNL. And the Moses technology, I've done around 30 cases now with the Moses, and I feel that there's 3 areas that I've noticed. Increased ablation for big stones is definitely, and I know Dr. Singhal, when we did the case yesterday, you felt that immediately, right? There's definitely an increased ablation effect. There's reduced retropulsion. Okay, I put that number 2. You know, I was managing retropulsion okay anyway, but I think there's definitely a role for reduction of retropulsion. And there's this third thing about accessing the difficult location. It won't be happening a lot, but when you need it, it's there. And I think that's going to be a very good advantage with the distance mode. Our laboratory data shows superiority of high power settings when we compare to lower power settings, the sub-millimeter fragment effect. And I have to temper that the clinical outcomes data in this field is limited. It is confounded by study design. There's lack of technical detail, variation in stone-free definitions, and variation of imaging and imaging time to follow up. You know, when I scan some people at 6 weeks, and then I have a residual fragment, when I scan them, 2 months later, it's gone. And so, when is the optimal time to image someone when you've dusted them? You know, 3 months? 3 months, you're probably right. That's probably correct. I initially was 4 weeks, and I was like, oh, this is not good. Then I moved to 6, and now I'm at 8 weeks. But Professor Gupta, did you say 3 months? Yes. Yeah, okay. I will now change to 3 months, because you're correct, probably correct. And I subject to you that stone-free rates for dusting, if appropriately performed dusting technique, are non-inferior to retrieval. But at the end of the day, you need to be facile in both techniques. This is what I teach our residents. It's not one or the other. You need to know both. And you need to tailor your technique to the stone and patient factors. I want to thank members of our team. We have a Holmium lab team. I have a fellow, Dr. Al-Duki. Tim Hall's our biomedical engineer. Will Roberts is my partner in the lab. And then our operating room at the main site where I do most of my dusting, which is the VA at Alba. And then we run a course every year. It's in Chicago. It's called the Dust Symposium, Developments in Uroscopic Stone Treatment. I invite all of you to come for free registration on Lumenis. Where's Lumenis, right? and so have the opportunity to come 2 days. Next year, Dr. Monga is our keynote speaker. We usually have around 18 to 20 faculty. It's a very packed 2-day event, very practical, not just about dusting and lasers, but about all the advances in urethoscopy. So I'd like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any questions. Yes? Yeah, pre-op.
Have you published this?
So I got that from Ralph Klayman. You know, I was at the World Congress in South Africa, and I was moderating a session, endoscopic guided PCNL access that he does with Jamie Landman, and he puts an access sheath in everyone, right? Then puts the scope up, and then they puncture under vision. And I said to him, you can get an access sheath in everyone? I mean, because I can't. And he said, yeah. We gave them tamsulosin for 10 days, and now we can get one in everyone. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's something. So there's only one study that's looked at this. It came from a Turkish group, and they found improved access rates and stone-free rates in pre-op tamsulosin. There is data to show post-op tamsulosin also improves residual fragment passage. We routinely give everyone 30 days of tamsulosin post-operatively as well. And by the way, Clayman is now doing a randomized trial in this area.
Without the access sheet, you said most of your cases you're doing without the access sheet.
I use access sheet, if you look at our series, around 30 to 40% of the time.
Do you use lesser pressures, irrigation pressures?
So, you know, I've always used pressure irrigation. And we have a pressure bag and we pump it. And so when I started off with dusting, the nurses would say, where do you want me to pump it? And there's a green line, right? So I said, just pump it to the green line. I don't know, just pump it. That's what they said, it's green line, fine. But that green line was 300 millimeters of mercury. And only after a year and a half did I find that out. And in that year and a half, I didn't have many complications related to that. So we dropped it now to 150 millimeters of mercury. I use pressure irrigation, but I have a 3-way stopcock, and then I will tweak how much comes in and out. If I'm going to be in the kidney for more than 30 minutes with pressure irrigation, I need an access sheet. So that's my criteria. So those large stones that you saw there, access sheet goes in. I'm going to be in there for more than 30 minutes. I'm in. If the patient has infected urine, access sheet. There are other criteria that we have. Like we have a lot of spinal cord injury patients that we treat with urethrostomy. I put an access sheet, and to be honest, those patients I just fragment and retrieve if possible. So we use them, but we tend to use them judiciously. If you look at our unit, we have 5 endourologists. The range of access sheet use, the lowest user is 20%. I'm sort of in the middle at 40%. One of my colleagues is at 80 and 90%. When we did that survey for the Endourology Society, 60% of respondents use access sheet for every single case. So, and I know the literature now is very jazzy about pressure and access sheath, and there's more work to be coming in that area. But I know that there's some controversy, but 20 minutes, 30 minutes in a non-infected case, if I'm happy, I won't use the sheath. Any other questions? Professor Gupta.
I'd like to make only a few comments actually.
Yeah.
I'm practicing urology last 42 years, and I have seen all this revolution of the stone management. I'm from the era of open surgery. So, this dusting is equivalent to ESWL, because when ESWL started, it was again 1 or 2 millimeter fragment. That's why that is our practice here. When we do ESWL, we evaluate at the end of 3 months. That's why I said 3 months. And until this patient has some complications, then they will come back early to us. And if you want to see the complete clearance, you have to wait. You cannot achieve that within 1 week or 2 weeks. And I agree that this dusting is much better. There is no doubt about that. Regarding the use of the access sheet, when PCNL started, everybody was using a tube. And in this country only, we have started using the tubeless and all these things last 20 years. And now gradually, most of the urologists are doing tubeless. Same applies to the access sheet. Initially, with the fear in the mind, we are putting the access sheet. But gradually, with the improvement, technology, miniaturization of the instruments, changing of the thinking fragments to the dusting, I agree that in every case you may not need it, but you have to select out the case.
Absolutely.
Regarding the Indian ureters may not be that large as the American ureters. So that is one of the limitations what we have seen.
Yeah.
And previously they have done the staging. First they used to put a stent, then they go back after 2 weeks, then they do a ureteroscopy, like that. So I have seen that era also. But gradually that is now changed. Everybody go in the first go only and try to do. If there is any difficulty, I'm quoting here Ralph Clever, we have to be very, very gentle with the ureter. never push anything, otherwise you will add into complication. So if you have any problem, stop the procedure, put a stent, come out, go back again after 1 hour.
So I agree with everything. Those comments are very apt. You know, and I think the ureters here, people tell me, are tighter, and I can imagine that. One of the things that we'll do is say, let's say it's a case that I want to do an access sheet, okay, and I can't get one in. With a P6, you know, for us that's our quite small caliber flexible scope that Olympus make. We can get in. If we can get into the kidney, I won't stent the patient to bring him back. I'll get in, I'll do what I can in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'll stop, I'll put a stent, and then they'll come back for a tidy up and clean up. And what happened is, what I started to find is around 30-40% of those patients, when I bring them back for that second cleanup, there's nothing there. So that's when I started to realize that we started doing less of these stage procedures. But definitely, we wouldn't put a stent and come out. The only time we would put a stent and come out is if we can't get the scope in, because it's too tight. So, which happens probably 5% of the time. So I always counsel patients 5% failure rate, stent, you'll wake up with a stent. Which is, I think, very similar to what Dr. Singler was telling me. And that's also validated, by the way, from a multi-institutional series from the US that looked at the primary failure rate for ureteroscopy. So I think there was a move for judicious use of access sheets with Olivia's work that came out. Then with the recent wave in pressures and sepsis and pressure, you need low pressure. There's a renaissance to maybe we should put more and more access sheets. And we need more data. One more thing about pre-stenting, the Crow's recent study, multi-institutional Crow study, showed that if you were pre-stented, you had higher stone-free rates. So maybe some of the old things that we were doing are not all that bad. Any comments, Dr. Manohar? You're a very experienced staff sir.
We also do the same procedure. If we dilate the ureter more than to 10 or 12, then I think we are going to stent it. Otherwise, if we are unable to dilate the ureter, then we will straight away do the ureteroscopy. If any chance, if we are unable to dilate even more than 7 or 8 French, direct ureteroscopy and fragment the stone. But the stone should be non-infected, culture should be negative, and there should be a small stone, and you should be able to complete the procedure within 45 minutes or so. Then I think without access sheet is definitely helpful in the stone-free rate. If the stone is bigger size, if you find that it is infected stone and much larger stone, preferable to have an access sheet. And of course, I think probably in US you use the 11x40 access sheet. But probably in Indian ureters, as Professor Gupta was telling me, we are having 9 ureters. Most of the times we are able to pass a 9.6 by 11 sheet. And I think in my experience of more than 6,000 cases, we are able to, 95% of the time, we are able to pass 9 by 11 sheet. If by any chance we are unable to pass it, we are going to go for direct ureteroscopy.
Yeah, my primary size in an unstented ureter is usually 10-12. If they're stented, I'll put a higher size.
So in our situation, I think 10-12 is only 35%, 40% of the time we are able to pass that in an Indian scenario. 95% of the time we are able to pass only 9 by 11 access sheet.
The other thing I want to bring to your attention to everyone is like the stent emission. Why am I fixated on stent emission? If you look at the US level, population level data, 15% of patients who undergo a ureteroscopy will visit the emergency department within the first 30 days after ureteroscopy. Why? Why do they visit the ED? And we've been looking at this in the state of Michigan. Around 50% of those patients are visiting for pain, flank pain, hematuria, not septic, there's no fragment, and vast majority of those patients have stents. So, stent morbidity is a big issue for us. So if we can reduce some of the stenting in select patients, that's where we see an advantage of a dusting technique. But for the big stones that I showed you there, routinely we will stent. And when we do a staged procedure, we always wait 2 weeks between the two. I don't know if you have criteria for 2 weeks. We tend to wait 2 weeks. We don't wait. We won't do it in a week, because I find in the big stones that we've dusted, if you go back 1 week, it's a bit too early, and then you spend a lot of time removing fragments in the ureter. That's, that should have passed a week later.
Suppose if you have the time ureters and you are able to dilate them to say about 12, do you think still you don't put a stent?
If we dilate, we stent.
Yeah, I think that's the principle, basic principle for the thing is if you dilate the ureter, it's
we stent.
We stent.
One thing which which wonders me is that why in a 30 days a stent? I usually put stent whenever usually we tend to get the stent out by maximum 10 days. So your data was we recently told that in first 30 days there are so many patients visiting this EPD for the stent mortality, but we hardly have. Secondly, the kind of stones which we see in Indian population are not the stones you are seeing in your population. The average stone burden which I come across is 1.5 centimeter bare minimum. So when you handle this kind of bigger stones, they are all calcium oxide. So these kind of stones, doing a stentless is actually a desirable thing, but ultimately many times we end up putting a stent and remove it quite early, not at 30 days, hardly at 7 or 10 they remove it. So that settles down the cost.
So maybe the reason we say 30 days is not the stents in for 30 days.
Rather, sorry to interrupt you, there is a paper which is saying that you compare the stented patients and the non-stented patients, the emergency visit is lesser in the group which are non-stented in the first week.
So the reason we use the 30-day index is it's a government Medicare policy that looks at emergency department visits are always coded for the first 30 days. The vast majority of the patients have stents in for 1, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks at the most. But from a population level, 30 days is the index definition. So that's why we use the 30-day mark. I completely agree with you. For a 1.5 centimeter stone, we stent. But I think, like you said, in shockwave, for a 5 millimeter, 1 centimeter stone, I think with the dusting technique, you can get away in the right patient without a stent. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much. Alright, so everyone, can we have one more time a huge applause for Dr. Khurshed Dhami? Thank you so very much for sharing your valuable clinical experience with Moses and also answering all our questions. Alright, so everyone, moving on forward, now I am going to call Mr. Dharmendra Misri, country head, to please come up on the stage, and he's going to share his insights about the Moses technology. Can we have a huge applause for him, everybody?
Good evening, everyone. I'm not here to share my insight about Moses technology because I think the experts have already shared about it. I just want to kind of thank you all for coming over and be a part of this the groundbreaking technology which we are trying to bring into India. Our aim in India is to make sure that we bring in the technology nearly at the same time when it is getting launched in Western world. And we will stand committed towards the same in making sure that we are not being left behind when it comes to adopting a newer technology, and not only adopting a newer technology, but to have an access to the newer technology. And you have seen in some of the presentations, Moses technology is absolutely new. Okay, we are probably the 8th place in the world where it is getting launched. Okay, and I assure you, that we will try and make sure that whenever the Lumenis comes out with any latest technologies, any advancement, okay, we will bring it here in India. The next thing, I would sincerely like to thank, because whenever you bring newer technology, obviously it comes with a lot of cost. At the same time, there are because we are in a business where we are involved in making sure that our patients are better. Okay? The patient care is at the center, whether it is you or us. And to adopt a new technology, we need a lot of opinion leaders who help us sail us through this. Okay? And when we brought in this technology into India, we have been helped by a lot of surgeons in India who did few cases, and we had video testimonial also being done in India. So I would like to, thank Dr. Manoj Desai. He helped us a lot, not only in terms of doing the first few cases, doing the videos, and also helping us with a couple of live surgeries. It was unfortunate that because of technical issues, we missed out. It is really a feast. I was quite keen, being very new into the urology, to witness those live surgeries. However, I'm not been very disappointed because all of you will be sent a link tomorrow where you can just click on the link and see both the live surgeries. Okay, so we make sure that everybody gets that link and you can hook in and see those surgeries. I know we could get a lot of steps, however, it is not as satisfactory as we wanted it, just because of the technical issues. So my apologies for that. I would also like to thank Dr. Sabnesh, Dr. Anil Vasni, Dr. Rajesh Taneja, Dr. Manohar, Dr. Singla, Dr. Saini, Dr. Anand Kumar, for helping us with few initial cases and giving us insight about the Moses technology and also guiding us as to how we should take it forward. I'm also thankful for our first Indian Moses Advisory Board. We had a very interactive session today. It gives us a lot of insight. And I assure you, one of the biggest findings which we saw is the need of taking this technology purely on a clinical and a training platform. And you will see those activities have been happening more often than what you have seen it in the past in India. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Dr. Ghani, who has come all the way from US and sharing his experience. I know he landed almost midnight and we kept you busy immediately from the next day morning. I know how it feels, 12 hours of time difference, jet lags, without any rest. But we really thank you, and on behalf of the India team and all the urologists, thank you very much. I think we had a great learning from you. And as your roots are from India, and you love coming here, okay, we will keep troubling you. And, I want all of you to join me and, acknowledging and thanking the team here in Lumenis, India, who had made all this, the event possible. Okay, the team led by Rashid and now Karan. Okay, I personally like to thank each one of you to making sure that we get the right kind of contents and the insight about the new technology. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Edu, our marketing director, based out of Israel. He's the main behind a lot of work which has gone on Moses to come over and share his thoughts and insight. Thank you. And last but not least, our event manager guys, Anand, and the AV guys, thank you very much. I know there's a little bit of technical issues. However, the amount of efforts which has gone behind making this possible, okay, is really appreciable. Thank you very much. And with that, I thank all the participants to come over, or some of our channel partners, to witness the launch of the new revolutionary technology. And I'm sure the Moses will help you and your patient for the better quality of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, sir. All right, so everyone, I think everybody already aware of it, that now we already wrap up this evening. Well, thank you once again, each and everyone who are represented. Thank you so much for being a part of this launch. And can we have a huge round of applause for all of us? We were very together. Great. Well, everyone, now we are opening the floor for cocktail and dinner. To enjoy the time and yes, to enjoy this beautiful, amazing evening. Talk to each other. Just enjoy the moment. And now, this is your host, Ekta. Thank you so very much. Signing off for the evening. Have a great day. Thank you.